this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to the decimation of my Trident maple. I'll put an info card up now at the beginning of this video which shows the analysis of what these trees looked like before they got hacked, up to the point where the two trunk chops were done. That info card will come up now. Right, so if you've been away, welcome back. And this is like a continuation, but I thought it warranted a separate video. And that's the air layering of the top. So first thing I need to do is up the camera so that you can see what on earth is going on and what I'm talking about. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at air layering this nice top section of the tallest tree with the thickest trunk. And to be able to see where the air layer is going to be, the first thing I need to do is remove what are now unwanted branches. They weren't before, but they are now. So that I can see what's going on. So we will just take off these branches that they're going to be below the air layer at the end of the day. So they're of no use. And where I'm going to trunk chop this after the air layer has hopefully successfully been removed, I will then trunk chop it, and these branches will all be above that point, so they're not required either way. They're not required. So we will remove them out of the way so that we can see what we're doing with the air layer and where it's going to be. Now we have a major decision now. The position of this air layer, I think, needs to be where this cluster of branches are, but I'm going to come below it. Flipping spiders everywhere. See, so if I do the air layer where this cluster of branches are, it's going to interfere with the process, I believe. I don't know this for sure, but if you do your 2 rings and you clear the bark off, if you've got a large branch that you've removed within those 2 rings, it's not that easy to sort of scrape everything clean. But I really do want that air layer right there, so that the movement in the trunk is lower down. If I put the air layer there below those things, these branches would have to come off anyway, because they'd be at ground level. So they've got to come off, haven't they? Decision made. Just talk yourself through it. Now what you people probably do is think that, whereas I do it by talking out loud. It's thinking out loud, sorry, not talking out loud. All talking is out loud. Providing your switch camera on, of course. So I'm just removing these branches because they wouldn't remain in the final design, and they are probably right where I want the air layer, so they'd be in the way anyway. And once they're out of the way, then you can see what I'm getting at. There's an awful lot of branches all coming out at a given point, and I'm not sure I want any branches below the first point of turn in the trunk, apart from the branch that's actually coming out of what will be the outside bend. I'm going to keep the one below it as well, but I don't want this one. So that's cleared the space. Now you can see we've got a chop there which gives us the first bit of movement. So that is obviously a main part to the tree. It has a branch coming out of it, this one here, so that will be my first main branch. But I'm leaving this one on at the moment, yeah, because I might keep it. I might actually push that round to the side to become the very first branch, and this one would be the second one. Decision not made. And then there's another one round the back a bit lower down. But if this is where the air layer is going to be, we need to do a bit of tidying up. So we need all of these branch stumps taken off, because somehow or other we've got to get this bark off now, and it's not going to be very easy with all these branch stumps. Now I don't, this is only my 3rd ever air layer, and the first 2 I did were on the juniper, and they didn't have this problem because they were sort of whips heading off from They weren't the main trunk, let's put it that way. They were side branches, so they didn't have this problem as such. Right, so we've sort of cleared the decks. Now what we've got to do is break off and go and get our kit. So I'm going to need some moss, that needs to go into soak, get a nice lot of water, a bag, some wire and a knife to cut the bark off and scrape it clean. This is what I mean, scraping the bit clean after the bark comes off is not very easy with these stumps. I might have to go in a bit deeper and actually take them in with the knob cutter and take them right in so that I can then, you see how deep I've gone with that. Now when I scrape the bark off, I'll be going over the top of that. And I don't think that will make any difference to the way the air layer will work, because the air layer is purely based on the top ring of the area where you take the bark off. So these annoying little stumpy bits can come right off actually. And then I should be able to scrape it clean. Knob cutters are brilliant, whoever designed that. The fact that you can dig right in like that and create a nice concave shape. Right, so let's go and get the rest of the kit sorted out. A bit more coffee. And then we'll get my first ever air layer on a deciduous tree done. And we'll do a bit of that while we're at it. I'll be back. Okay, I've brought the camera down a bit because if I'm working here a lot of the time, having this at the top of the screen, hopefully you'll still be able to see what I'm doing. Whereas if it's in the middle of the screen and lower down, I'll end up getting my hands in the way. Now the moss I'm using at the moment is this. And that's not by choice, that's because I ran out of my other stuff and a good friend of mine had bought some of this and ended up not needing it, so it was donated, so it's good. It comes out of the bag slightly damp, but that's what it is. But as I said, I didn't buy that, it was given to me, so that's what I'm using for my air layers. I use sphagnum moss a lot to do with my orchids. You know, there's an awful lot of orchid roots, absolutely love the stuff, but that's a different type of moss altogether. That's a relatively expensive New Zealand sphagnum moss, which is a different species altogether to the stuff you get in Europe. Much sturdier, fluffier, and lasts well and holds quite a lot of water. As does this, but it can only hold water if you put some water in there. When you think you've got everything, there'll always be one thing you haven't got, and I forgot the water as I walked past the door. This is RO water, it's for my orchids basically, but I keep several of these containers just inside the door so that they're always at comfortable room temperature, for the orchid roots that is, but water's water as far as doing an air layer is concerned. But the fact that that's RO water, it's pure, it has no impurities. It's not tap water. It's had everything that's in tap water taken out, leaving basically pure water. It's purer than rainwater. So that's my moss into soak, and then I have a reasonably sharp knife, I hope, and some wire cutters, and the last piece of wire of that dimension, which is quite thin, but all it is to wrap the bag. Now we had an emergency. When I came out here to start filming first thing, with the video that I scrapped, I wasn't planning on doing an air layer, and I use freezer food bags for my air layer bags. They were handy and they worked fine. Unfortunately, I used the last one on the juniper and I've run out and my home shop doesn't arrive till Friday and I don't want to leave this now. So what I've done is, that's the only polythene bag I could find, and it's the bag that my fertiliser was in, and as I probably said it wrong earlier in the video, that's what I use, and that's been transferred into an airtight container so that I have a bag. You following this? Right, so the next thing we need to do is cut our ring. Now the top of the ring will end up being where the roots come out. So this is the bit where you need to judge where it's going to be. Now my movement comes down there, and then down there. So this will be the shortest bit of trunk for that movement, and I think about there would be good. As I said, these stumpy bits are in the way. Now given that that was difficult to cut with the secateurs, I don't know how easy getting this bark off is going to be. But I'll remind everybody again, if you've got a sharp knife in your hand, make sure the blade points away from you at all times. Now having the tree on the turntable has made quite a difference to this bit compared with the juniper, which wouldn't have been any good because it was a side branch. So I was cutting this way, which is very easy to get that sort of thing in the way. Go steady. I mean, if it's not a sharp knife, go and sharpen it for a start, but blade away from you, and use, in this case I can use the turntable, so I can get the turntable to move and take the knife with me. And we'll see what we've done once we've been right round and met up with our initial cut. And then this is the bit where you can slip. Again, it's better to cut away from you. Use your thumb to push the knife upwards, and then if it slips it just goes into thin air. And these lumpy bits where these branches have come off, I hope are not going to make this fail. See, the knife sticks where there was a little stub of a branch there. Well, you have the appropriate tool, get rid of it. Whoops. Wire cutters won't do it, will they? Well, they were black. There we go. If we've got a recess there, then this knife will glide to the top. Like that. Now the hardest bit is going to be to do this from the top ring downwards. As I said, when I did the junipers I was working on a horizontal branch. This time I'm working on a vertical trunk. Can't even see where the ring is. It's about there. Now I've always been told and read that this is the cut that must be clean. It must be a clean cut or it won't work. And it must go right down into the hardwood, or what some people would call the dead wood. It's inside all the layers. Missed a bit. See, now one of the where the cuts of the branches are here has gone up above where the ring is. That could make this air layer fail. I don't think it will. I mean, these are almost certain to work. They are said to be one of the easiest to air layer, so I'm just going to rely on that fact basically. Make sure there's a neat cut, at least part way round, and we'll just hope. Make sure there's no path for the roots to effectively heel over and form a bridge. Compared with the juniper, this is not easy. It doesn't feel like it's going to be successful. Whereas when I did the juniper, I thought, well, everything went to plan. You know, the wood scraped off nicely. This doesn't want to scrape off very well. This wood is rock hard. The juniper was, relatively speaking, soft. But I'm going to make sure that there is no place for a bridge, no place for the tree to grow back over. And it's all been scraped. And a lot of it I don't need to because it's where the branches were cut off. And it looks a right mess compared with the one that I did on the juniper. But that's what it is. Now we've got to hope. And of course the other thing I've forgotten is hormone rooting gel. I bet people who've done loads and loads of air layers, they all go really smoothly, nothing ever goes wrong, and there's no worry. I mean, this is worrying me to death. You know, I'm worrying that I've just effectively killed the top of this tree, which is the best bit out of everything I had there. That's the best bit. And what I've just done may have lost it. I've got these thoughts. Yeah, this is the hormone rooting gel which goes round the top ring, which is where the roots should come out from. So hopefully that will do its job. I got the gel. I mean, some people say the gel's not much good and the powder is better. But I've seen a lot of people that use the powder that mix it up with water and turn it into a paste anyway, and then paste it on. That sounds quite good actually. The amount I've got there, that'll last longer than I will, I bet. I need to wipe my finger with leaves, water and leaves, and jeans, because they're about to go in the wash anyway. Right, so that's the preparation done. Now what we've got to do is get the bag on there. So first thing we need to do with this is cut the top off, because we don't need all that. It'll only get in the way, and obviously that's a thing that seals, which is of no use because the trunk's got to go down through it. Right, then we'll go down the sides. So we've got an open bag. And then we go along there so that we've effectively got a sheet. It'd be nice if somebody could design something that that had a way of doing this without going to this extent. But what I'm after is the ability to wrap this around the trunk. Yeah, it's far too much. Let's take some off. It'll only get in the way. Let's take some off. What I'm doing is I don't want to reduce the amount that's going to wrap round the trunk. I'm reducing the amount that goes up the trunk from the bottom to the top where the two rings are. Right, now what we do now is we start here. This is probably far too big. Yeah, it is. Take some off of there as well. Go. Where's my wire? Let's find an end. The wire is to seal the bag on the trunk. Now some people tie, some people wire, some people use a ziplock thingy, that you just pull tight. I find with those things, once you pull them tight, you never get them undone again. Whereas with wire you can just unwrap it. You can undo it and then just wrap it up again. So we go round there, round the base of the trunk, below the ring, and wrap the polythene round and round and round, and there's far too much. Let's get some more off. Far too much. Whoops. Right, round we go, nice and tight, It's going to be tightened up with the wire, so it's not essential until you've finished. Yeah? And then don't worry about what's going on up above. We'll sort that out once it's been wired in position. And the wire goes below the ring. And this is the bit that goes tight. So nice and tight, so that there isn't really an air gap that can get in to there. It's fixed and sealed. Like that. So that's one bit done. So the bag is now firmly fixed in place, but it's not a bag yet. This is the bit we've now got to do. So we've now got to sort of untwirl it so that the moss can go down in. We've just got to sort of undo the turns and open it out so that we can effectively get a good wad of moss in there. Oops. It's slippery because the rooting gel's got on the polythene. Right, then we get some moss that is now absolutely dripping wet and doesn't need to be that wet. It's better if it goes in moist, not absolutely soaking wet. And you need a fair bit. The reason for the fair bit is that if the air layer works well, this is the area the roots will grow into. Well, if it's a small area, they'll be all squashed up and compacted, and when you take your moss off, you'll have a ball of roots that's actually quite small. Whereas if the moss is a fair bit, then they've got room to move and room to form much bigger space. Excuse me. Right, and then the next bit of wire that goes on is to seal the top and wrap round the bag. So the first bit goes round the top of the bag, nice and tight again, nice and tight, as hard as you can pull it without ripping everything to pieces. Go round a couple of times, and then you effectively go round the bag to hold the moss tight, and that'll take, that'll seal the join and everything else. And you have to keep your eye on these, because if there is an air leak, which there is on this one, I can see it, you've got to make sure that the moss stays wet. Now, the first air layer that I did on the juniper, I took it off while I was doing the second air layer, and the moss had become slightly dry. Now, rather than remove the bag, which is a faff, understatement, what I did was I actually made a small hole and used a little, where's it gone? Goodness knows what I've done with that. It was just there. A little pipette, basically, to add a load of water into the container. The polythene holding the stuff in place. And made it very wet again. So you need to have a look. Every now and again, just have a look and see if it's still moist. And if it's not, get some water in there somehow. Now, if your wire at the top and the bottom, or your zip tie, or your string, whatever you've used, is tight, you won't be able to get water in that way. So the only way to get it in is through the polythene. Right, so there we go. Nice and firm, nice and tight, and hopefully that will work okay. What I will probably do is, in a while, perhaps say 5-6 weeks. The instant I see some roots, the first root I see, I might actually just gently ease all of this off and add a lot more moss and make it bigger. Yeah, but you have to go very careful disturbing it before the roots have really got going. Because if you remove the moss from that ring and break that seal, sometimes whatever little root nubbins are starting will just fail. So we shall see what happens, and hopefully we haven't lost the top of that tree. The only other thing I need to do, which I don't need to film, is I will put some foil around this to reflect the sun off of it so that it doesn't turn into a pot of boiling water, basically. And I will put this back in a place where it gets less sun than where it was before I brought it in. And we'll see what happens. So as far as the trunk chops are concerned, the energy from those two trees will now go into the little shoots that are left. And before I forget, the other thing I said I would do is feed it. So this stuff is just little granules, and the beauty of that is you can rub them in, yeah, so that they don't wash off. Birds don't seem to take any notice of them. And a lot of people put that stuff exactly where I've put it and forget to do this. When you take your bonsai out of the pot, where are most of the roots? They're not in the middle of the pot, are they? They're around the edge. So where do you think the best place for the feed is? Round the edge, not in the middle. That's where most of the active roots are, around the edge of the pot. So there we go, job done, and now all we can do is cross everything and just hope it works. If it doesn't work, then we're back to doing the trunk chop, and we'll have 3 stumpy trees to grow on. So all is not lost, but I still think this was the best part of the tree. So let's see what happens, and I'll see you next time. If you're not subscribed, it'd be nice if you did so. Don't forget the old thumbs up, and as I said, this is a novice having a go at an air layer, and people with lots more experience would have probably done it in a third of the time, if not a quarter, and it would probably have looked more professional than everything else. But you know, as far as air layers are concerned, that's my 3rd one ever, and I need to get better polythene more suited to doing this, because that wasn't that successful. So I need to get my food bags, because they worked okay on the juniper. That wasn't as good as I would have liked. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.